Welcome to today's deep dive on a surprisingly common tax trap: how a spouse's general purpose FSA can make you ineligible to contribute to an HSA, even if you're on a high deductible health plan. We'll explain how the rules work, how to avoid excess contributions, and exactly what to do if you already contributed while ineligible. We'll also show flowcharts and timelines to make this crystal clear, and we'll include quick quizzes to lock in your understanding. Let's get started. Here's today's agenda. First, we'll define HSAs and FSAs. Next, we'll show where eligibility breaks down when a spouse elects a general purpose FSA. Then, we'll walk through the hidden trap scenario and how it creates excess HSA contributions. After that, we'll cover a step-by-step fix, including the critical recoding request. We'll then look at timelines and deadlines so you avoid penalties. We'll finish with smart strategies for next year and key takeaways, reinforced by short quizzes. High-level view. HSA eligibility requires more than just having a high-deductible health plan. If your spouse elects a general-purpose FSA that can reimburse your medical expenses, that availability alone can disqualify you from making or receiving HSA contributions for those months. This creates excess contributions that must be remedied promptly to avoid penalties. Let's ground ourselves in the basics. You can contribute to an HSA only if all conditions are met. You have HDHP coverage. You have no disqualifying coverage. You are not enrolled in Medicare, and you are not claimed as a tax dependent. Eligibility is determined monthly. Your contribution limit is prorated by the number of eligible months unless you qualify for the last month rule, which has its own testing period. A key point is that a general-purpose FSA that can reimburse your expenses is considered disqualifying coverage, whether or not you actually use it. FSAs come in three common flavors. A general-purpose FSA reimburses broad medical expenses and usually can be used for a spouse or dependents. That availability disqualifies HSA contributions. In contrast, a limited-purpose FSA is restricted to dental and vision expenses and is compatible with HSAs. A post-deductible FSA only reimburses medical expenses after the HDHP deductible is met and is also compatible with HSAs. Understanding your spouse's FSA type is critical. This flowchart shows decision points that determine whether a spouse's FSA knocks out your HSA eligibility. If there's no FSA, you remain eligible provided other criteria are met. If the spouse has an FSA, identify the type. A general-purpose FSA typically disqualifies you because it can reimburse your expenses. Some plans allow the spouse to elect reimbursement limited to the employee only. If the written plan and the election truly exclude your expenses, HSA eligibility may be preserved. Limited purpose and post-deductible FSAs are generally compatible. Remember, eligibility is assessed monthly based on actual coverage and availability of reimbursement. On the left, a general-purpose FSA reimburses broad medical expenses and usually extends to a spouse or dependents, which disqualifies HSA contributions because the availability of reimbursement is considered disqualifying coverage. On the right, a limited-purpose FSA is restricted to dental and vision and is compatible with HSAs. A post-deductible FSA activates only after meeting the HDHP deductible and is also compatible. The key distinction is whether the FSA can reimburse non-dental/non-vision medical expenses before the HDHP deductible, and whether it can reimburse your expenses. Here's the trap. You enroll in an HDHP and contribute to an HSA. Later, or even at open enrollment, your spouse elects a general-purpose FSA at their employer. Because that FSA can reimburse your medical expenses by plan design, you are considered to have disqualifying coverage for those months. Any HSA contributions attributable to those months are excess contributions and must be corrected promptly to avoid penalties. This table summarizes common combinations. If your spouse has no FSA and you meet the other criteria, you're eligible. A general-purpose FSA that can reimburse your expenses disqualifies you. In rare cases where the plan is written and the election is made to limit reimbursement to the employee only, your eligibility may be preserved. Limited purpose and post-deductible FSAs are generally compatible with HSAs. To fix excess HSA contributions, first contact your HSA custodian. Request a return of excess contributions, including any earnings attributable to the excess. If you already spent some of the ineligible contributions, ask the custodian to recode those prior distributions as a return of excess contributions, not as regular medical distributions. Complete the custodian's paperwork and keep all documentation. Aim to complete the correction by your tax filing deadline, including extensions, to avoid penalties. If you already spent some of the ineligible HSA funds, the fix remains possible. Ask your HSA custodian to recode those prior distributions as a return of excess contributions. This recoding helps ensure that 1099-SA and related reporting correctly reflect a return of excess, preventing unnecessary penalties on used funds. Keep written confirmation and detailed records. Quiz time. Question: which of the following most commonly disqualifies you from HSA contributions despite being on an HDHP? Option A: a spouse's general purpose FSA that can reimburse your expenses. Option B: a limited purpose FSA used for dental and vision only. Option C: a post-deductible FSA that activates after the HDHP deductible. Option D: not using the spouse's FSA even though it could reimburse you. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the spouse's general purpose FSA that can reimburse your expenses. The availability of reimbursement is what disqualifies HSA eligibility, regardless of whether the funds are actually used. Limited purpose and post-deductible FSAs are generally compatible with HSAs. Timing matters. To avoid the 6% excise tax, request and complete the return of excess contributions by your tax filing deadline, including extensions. Excess contributions are removed along with attributable earnings. Those earnings are taxable in the year you withdraw them. Remember that HSA limits are calculated monthly. For example, if you are eligible for 6 months, your maximum is 6/12 of the annual limit. The formula is annual limit times eligible months divided by 12. This timeline highlights when choices and corrections occur. At open enrollment, the spouse chooses an FSA type. At the plan year start, the FSA becomes active. Each month, HSA eligibility is reassessed. A general purpose FSA with spousal reimbursement disqualifies you for those months. Often, the problem is discovered during tax preparation. There is a correction window up to the tax filing deadline, including extensions, during which a return of excess can avoid the excise tax. If missed, the 6% excise tax applies each year until corrected. To stay eligible, coordinate benefit elections as a household. If you want to contribute to an HSA, your spouse should consider a limited purpose or post-deductible FSA instead of a general purpose FSA. Verify the plan document and election options. Some plans allow reimbursement limited to the employee only, which may preserve your eligibility. Recognize that mid-year changes are typically restricted. Maintain documentation and confirm interpretations with HR, the FSA administrator, and your HSA custodian. Set reminders ahead of tax deadlines in case corrections are needed. Here are the core points. General purpose FSAs commonly disqualify HSA eligibility even if you never use them. Eligibility is determined monthly, so contribution limits may need to be prorated. If you made excess contributions, fix them by requesting a return of excess, including earnings, and ask your custodian to recode any used funds as returns of excess. For future plan years, coordinate elections to maintain HSA eligibility, favoring limited purpose or post-deductible FSAs. In summary, check both spouses, elections, and plan documents before contributing to an HSA. If you discover ineligible months, remove excess contributions and earnings by your tax filing deadline to avoid penalties. If ineligible funds were spent, request that your custodian recode those distributions as returns of excess. Keep detailed documentation and confirmations. Second quiz question. You spent part of your ineligible HSA contributions on medical bills. What is the critical request to your custodian? Option A: do nothing. Option B: ask to recode prior distributions as a return of excess contributions. Option C: convert your HSA to a regular savings account. Option D: report the amount as additional income without custodian changes. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to ask the custodian to recode prior distributions as a return of excess contributions. This step corrects the tax reporting on the 1099-SA and helps prevent penalties on amounts you already spent. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or financial advice. HSA and FSA rules can vary by employer plan and can change over time. Consult a qualified tax professional, your HSA custodian, and your FSA or benefits administrator to evaluate your specific circumstances. Thanks for watching. If this video helped, please like, share, and subscribe. Let us know your questions or scenarios in the comments so we can cover them in future videos.